Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, I already screwed up the video because I labeled it 219. I have no idea what day it is. It's 223. But Judge Dan is here. Justin's here. It's Cofield Legal Podcast, and we're going to try to get back to a normal schedule now that basketball's starting to wind down. First of all, Dan, how you doing? Where are you?
I'm in Steamboat. I'm in my new house.
Oh, must be nice. Okay.
I moved to Steamboat.
What?
Yes. Steamboat Dan now. Judge Steamboat Dan.
Cut it out. You just did your floors in your house. You're not moving anywhere, and you've got you've got a freaking smoker that weighs 6 tons. You're not moving.
We're gonna have to move it. But I'm serious. We closed on our new place today.
What is going on here?
I'm sorry, man. I don't know what to tell you. We're moving on up.
I won't give away secrets, but Justin's always, surprising us or throwing stuff out, like wild stuff. I'm very jealous. Justin could be on the move any day. I don't know where he's going to be. He's like, it's crazy real estate market. So Dan, I'll ask it this way. When you get home after a show, do you self-examine the show a little bit? Do you ever does it hit you a half an hour, hour and a half after your show? You're like, wow, that part sucked. I didn't do well in that part.
I actually do listen to my shows. I listen back to my shows. I listened back to the show you and I did.
And?
The hour. Yeah, well, it went quick. So I did an hour with you. It was this week, right?
Last Thursday.
Yeah, it went quick. It went super quick.
Yeah, we go fast.
Yeah.
We go fast.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we'll get better chemistry if I ever.
Whoa! We didn't have good chemistry. What's going on?
No, but I mean, we'll get more reps. It's like sports. We'll get better reps. But yeah,
it's totally different doing it here versus having the commercial breaks because the commercial breaks squeeze everything down. Like Justin sees that when he's in, we go fast, and then he and Adam start arguing. I knew as soon as we brought up a bet today. And I knew as soon as I started doing it, Adam was going to, latch on and not let it go, Justin, at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, sometimes, how Adam likes to go off the deep end. He's going off the deep end, and me and Adam are going back and forth, and there's Steve over there, call time.
I'm trying not to distract you guys. So
no,
Dan,
today was good.
We had Justin mediate a problem or an issue we're having. We made a bet. I don't know if I told you this one. We made a bet on the show. Brian Flores, head coach or no head coaching job this coming year. Like he would get another job after being fired from the Dolphins.
Well, who was stupid enough to make the bet that he would get that type of job?
This is pre-lawsuit, though.
Pre-lawsuit. It was the day he got fired. And there's a bunch of stories out. Oh, here's the jobs he can get. And I'm like, he's not getting a job. And so I took he will not get a job. Adam Candy took he will get a job, and now Candy won't pay off the bet because he's like, well, he sued. I mean, the bet's void. I'm like, the bet is void.
Well, what was the ruling?
There was no ruling.
I did give a ruling. Yes, I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, not the rule. I thought you meant were there rules?
I'm not going to tell you, Dan. What
was the ruling?
What's your ruling, Dan?
Well, absent anything. I mean, if you were able to play back some feed from the show that there was some specific out, there is no out unless there was something in writing or verbally laid out that day. There's absolutely no out for Mr. Candy. He loses, period. Here's the deal. When we went to law school, I don't know about you, Mr. Watkins. What do they call that fake law that the Supreme Court is basically the only reason they exist is to make up fake law? What do they call that? That law that is supposedly inherent in the Constitution that they just make up all day long. The only reason they even have jobs.
Right. Yeah. From Pearson Post established judicial. Oh, yeah, I should know. I can't believe I don't know this answer, but yes, I'm following you.
Yeah, so I get there.
Give me a second, I'll get it.
Yeah, like the right to parent, the right to privacy, things that are not explicitly laid out in the Constitution, but we say, we think we should probably have that, right? But so there's all these laws like like the Commerce Clause. There's these things like basically the government can do anything they want to now, basically because of the Commerce Clause, right? It's all involved in commerce, so the government can do anything they want to because it's one way or the other. Everything's related to commerce, isn't it? Things like that. So, but no, I would say in this instance, because this is a contract issue, right? Isn't a bet contract?
Got it.
Yeah.
You ready?
What is it?
It's Marbury Madison.
Mm-hmm.
It's the legal theory of judicial review. There you go.
There you go.
Judicial
Exactly.
review.
So judicial review, the Supreme Court basically exists to make things up and say, oh, well, that's not in the Constitution. It's not explicit, because here it is. Either it's in the Constitution or the legislatures make it law, right? There it is. It should be very simple. If it's not a written law, then it doesn't exist. But no, we make things, well, we didn't, they didn't say that, but they meant it, surely, right? Blah, 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 blah. Here in this case, either you guys said it or you didn't. Did you guys, when you make the bet, did you say, well, he's going to get a job unless he sues? Did you guys say that anywhere?
No, of course not.
Okay, then he loses. Then Adam Candy, what was the bet? What was the payoff?
It's an illegal bet. I'd rather not discuss payment, but
well, that's too bad. Yeah, I don't care what you would rather or rather not do. You brought it up on the legal podcast.
Wow.
Therefore, you're going to
right into judge mode.
Yeah.
It was not a whole lot. It was a $50 Smith's card, or one of our local grocery stores.
Okay. Well, Mr. Candy, shame on you for trying to weasel your way out. By the way, I don't believe that's what the payoff was either, by the way. You're lying to me.
No, that's all it was.
Yeah, no, I don't believe that. But Mr. Candy, shame on you for trying to weasel your way out of whatever the payoff is. You lose.
Wow. All right. Well, we have I was going to say we have a third attorney on tomorrow in Xavier Pope. So if he goes 0 for 3 and he still won't pay this is outrageous.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's already outrageous.
I decided to go a little different tact and start talking about frustration of purpose and the impossibility of contracts, and said this wasn't frustration of purpose, but
it's not impossible. No. He actually got a job in the league. Like what?
No. I know. But I talked about if the league had shut down or something, and it was impossible for the purpose of the contract to have been carried out one way or the other, then there would be an argument. And Adam tried to jump on that and said, well, that's what happened here. He filed lawsuit, and there's no way he was going to get a job after that. And, you could expect how that went. Not well for Adam.
Correct.
Yeah, Brady's backing myself and Sam Paniotovich, who's our gambling insider. We made a snowfall bet in Boston during their big storm, over under 19.5 inches at Logan Airport, and I went over, and it finished at 23.5. And he came to Vegas, and when he came here, he paid it off. He paid off the bet. There's no welshing on the bet. None of that crap.
I'm still waiting for my barbecue sandwich, by the way.
From me?
Yeah, the Jaguars are going to straight up beat the Broncos. No points.
All right.
It's a lock. The Broncos are terrible. Blah 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 blah.
So what do I do? Do I send you like a Dickies card, or you want me to get you the sandwich when you're here?
I was slated to be there, then COVID knocked me out.
I know. Well, you'll be here.
I would rather you do nothing, because now I can hang this over your head that you've never paid off the bet.
No, see, this is not what I want, because by the way, I also, so now that I know I deserve the Smith's card, I also want to sue for defamation, because Candy keeps saying with no details that I've got bets with him that I didn't pay off. And I'm like, what bet? What bet didn't I pay off? There's some bets. That's defamatory. Doesn't he have to?
Well, you'd have to have, here's the thing. For a defamation suit to carry the day, you'd have to have damaged your reputation in the community. You'd have to have some reputation of note in the community to be worth besmirching. Cofield, I don't know how you're going to win that. Watkins, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, the only thing I could say is I'm going to go with there's a little doctrine called the doctrine of unclean hands, which means if you're all soiled in the mud with the pigs, you don't get to collect either. So you guys are all in this illegal enterprise together, and attempting to collect on an illegal bet is probably not the best place to be. Although I will say legally enforceable. Just because something is illegal doesn't mean you can't have a contract to do it. Not always, anyway. It's not carte blanche, mean that the court won't enforce the terms of a contract. If it's illegal but one side has already performed, they may in fact enforce an illegal contract. Kind of weird, but it happened. Hey, your Twitter broadcast says it's not available. I don't know
almighty with this.
My text. So I don't think we're up on Twitter.
All right, we'll get this fixed at some point.
What right now are you going to do to fix it?
I can't. No, I said at some point I can't do anything now. So it's out there on YouTube, and I think most people are watching on YouTube. All right. So my whole point with you get home, think about the show. Adam Hill and I talked about something in our 5 o'clock hour, and then it just hit me a little while ago. I'm like, we're not really the best sources to be the exclusive voice on this one. So we were talking about changes from COVID, coming out of COVID. And I noticed that the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, is very much denouncing remote work. He says, quote, "You can't stay at home all day in your pajamas." He says humans are social creatures. He wants people to go back to work. So there's a couple of things here. Do you believe that this is a comment that is genuine, or is it an agenda on the part of the mayor of New York? And secondly, are we social creatures to the point where we need to do our social creaturing at a workplace? What do you guys think?
Well, I would say I don't know that he's the expert on it. I'd say that the marketplace is going to probably decide that. I don't think that I want my government officials deciding what's best for employers and for employees. I think sociologists and employers and employees together in concert with their employers probably need to be making that decision. Just I don't know if he's a Republican or a Democrat. I don't know who this guy is, to be honest with you. I don't think it's up to him. He probably does have an agenda. If he's in charge of a government, he probably is looking for what's in his best interest and for the best interest of his government.
He is the mayor of New York. What has more value than anything in the city of New York?
Yeah, a real estate office space. Yeah, I mean that's what you would want your mayor to do, right? You want him to advocate for your industry. So I think he's doing what he's supposed to do, which is like, hey, come on, let's everybody get back to work. Get in here. We need you in the city because if you're not coming to the office, then you're not going to the deli, and you're not. Obviously they're hurting there. It's like the one place in the country where real estate didn't absolutely boom during the pandemic. I know, my sister-in-law is an attorney at a big law firm, at AM 100 law firm in New York City. They haven't been back. They have like 6 floors of this huge high rise in the midtown, just empty. Nobody, every once in a while somebody will go in or do whatever, but they don't. Nobody's back there yet, and maybe that means they won't. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's got to be scary as a government official if you had elected this guy mayor and he wasn't trying to get everything back to normal. You would kind of feel like he wasn't doing his job, right?
But that said, is the mayor's job to protect all financial interests of the city, or is there also a health aspect to it? Not being around people potentially can keep us more healthy. Work environments can be unhealthy. What about the public good?
Yeah, I think that's a little for my policy making purposes, maybe a little bit too far down the road of, whether or not that's fact or not, or opinion or not. The fact remains is if something doesn't change in New York City, then they're going to be in some real problems for providing service, just basic services
That's a
for
good point too.
the people of the city of New York. So
without tax revenue, people lose out as well. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, there's no taxes coming in, and that's not that city's expensive to maintain. Man, they need all that stuff. So I'd say I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be doing the exact same thing, trying to do my best to get everybody back in. I'd be meeting with some of the business leaders, asking what we need to do to get them to go back off remote and get people in.
Raises for everybody. Let's do it.
Hey, and I'll tell you that my wife, he may have an argument. I just don't know that it's up to him. They need to study it. My wife works from home permanently now, and she would rather work in an office from a mental health perspective, from a physical health perspective. Yes, she hates it. She absolutely hates it. She loves being in office.
Man, what are you doing that she doesn't want to be around you?
I actually, I tell you, you want to know the honest truth of it. I actually used to home office, and then I got kind of tired of it, and so I found a cheap deal on an office space in what's called the Denver Tech Center. I wasn't going in that often, and then she got pushed full. They didn't know it was going to be full time, but then she did get. They said you are going when the pandemic started. You're full time home, and we don't know if it's going to be permanent. all of a sudden I'm in that office DTC full time, and I go in now. I go in all full time every day. I get up, I go to the DTC office. I'm there. So it ain't me that's making her not want to be at home. She'd rather be in the office. She'd rather do her meetings. She'd rather be out of that place. For her, and I don't want to be too personal, but yeah, she's added a little bit of weight, whatever, because she's not out as active and things like that, so.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh man.
How about this comment? Why should work be a primary source of social interaction? Is that a little naive? Like it just is?
Well, for her, she's a mom, right? She's got 3 daughters, and for her, it is. I mean, where else are you around people the most, right? That's the longest place you're there, 7 to 10 hours a day. That's where she did get fed socially the most, right? She's around talking to people the most there. Now, does it have to be? No, but the reality is for her, that was where she was around people the most socially.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Dan on this, or Dan's wife, I guess I'd say. Like, I can't work from home. I need to go into an office. It is absolutely a social outlet for me. I mean, I'd argue maybe it's not my primary, but it's certainly a social outlet for me. So, and I think my wife feels similarly. And not everybody's that way.
No.
My brother in Denver and his wife, they got to work remote, and my brother's like, I never want to go back into the office. He never wants to work like in any other way other than remote ever again. And that's what he's figured out as a result of this. So I mean, there's certainly no right answer here. There are right answers for each person individually. But I think we're going to see some very interesting studies after this period of time as to answer that question. Are we social people? Do we need this? What happens when we don't have this and all of our social interactions are technological rather than personal? And what's the effect of that? I think we're going to, this is the time to study it. And I'm sure there's some really smart people, beginning to collect data on that and do some sort of measuring and theorizing as to what those results might be. But we'll probably won't know it for 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, so to my point on Adam Hill and I discussing this, we're not the right people to ask.
True. 100%.
It hit me. Yeah. I'm like, because when we were both like, we don't need to be around people. Well, first of all, it's very true for me. Adam lies. So Adam doesn't want to be around coworkers, but Adam Hill wants to be around people. Otherwise, he wouldn't. I mean, you know this, Justin. He wouldn't have basically a beat that he covers 6 of 7 days a week. So he says he doesn't need it, but he does need it. So I should have called him on it. You liar.
Well, I'm going to call you on it a little bit too. When I mean, you watch more sporting events at locations where other people are watching the sporting event other than the venue than I know. Like, hey, well, we went down to the local bar, watched the game, right? You're going there for social interaction.
That is a good point. Yeah.
That's not where I get my social interaction. I don't go to the local bar, but absolutely, I mean, most of the time I'm talking to you about it. Like, yeah, we're going down to this spot to watch the game, or we're going here.
You got me. It's not me. It's not me. It's the girlfriend. She needs
It's not me. Get out of here.
Damn it. All right. So maybe then I am a good person to talk about, and we both just lied.
Yeah. Well, and what about all the remotes you do? If you're gonna say that, I mean, I know there's a financial interest in that too, but if you're gonna say that Adam picks a beat 6 out of 7 days a week, your show's on the road like every day of the week, and you're on location somewhere now. You're a man of the people, Steve Cofield. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of. I'm a man of observing people. If I go out, that's kind of why I'm not like super engagement person, but I like to listen to others. God dang it. Who was I was around a conversation. Oh, I can't say where I was, but I was around a conversation the other day, and I literally just listened for like 45 minutes and said nothing because it was kind of above my expertise. And I'm like, I'm just going to sit here. So, which I like doing. That's not a bad thing. That's probably a rarity, right? It's probably a rarity, right, Dan? Around the radio host, most radio hosts, like, they got to talk all the time. It's like, you don't have to speak all the time in every setting.
That's right.
And by the way, this is true as well. Cofield just wants to keep away from Ari, so it can get ugly. All right, Dan. So some legal stuff here. First of all, in your neck of the woods, I like that you're taking this on as your thing. What is now going on with TV and Cronkyville?
Well, they had their settlement conference today. Now, I was traveling. I literally was traveling here to Steamboat. What I saw was not encouraging. The word out of it was, now I'll ask you this, Justin. They said nothing came out of it, but we're going to continue to talk. I'm assuming that if they were anywhere close out of that, that we would hear better language, more optimistic language out of that, that perhaps maybe even the federal magistrate would say, hey, let's put another date on the calendar, or something that we would be hearing better language out of that scenario than just, well, no deal was reached, but we'll continue to talk. But so I think nothing was achieved whatsoever. The magistrate that they were going before had been called the Michael Jordan. He had a settlement rate into the 90s. He was the Michael Jordan of settlement conferences, and so to have absolutely no encouraging language whatsoever coming out of today, no news of any concrete discussions in the future other than some vague thing of we'll continue talking, uh, leads me to believe that nothing was accomplished today, and they just simply wanted to say, hey, we met, so we will not see them on TV.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know anything about the case other than what you've talked about and what's going on. Obviously, the broadcast rights, and I'm sure that's a very complex thing to try to mediate. I'm not shorting that, but I agree with you. If they were close or they had moved towards close, you wouldn't say, "Nah, nothing got done," but we're going to keep talking. They would have sent some encouraging notes out there, or something like, "We're working towards a structure. We have agreed upon a foundation of negotiating terms." There's a whole, litany of things they could have said that would have indicated to the public that, hey, you can have some hope for ironing these things out. The we'll continue to talk can very well mean that they absolutely have no intention on talking any further, but
Right.
because they're in federal court, they have to say, we're always willing to talk. Yeah, otherwise they'll get slapped around for not participating in mediation in good faith. So they're never going to say, "Oh, we've shut down all conversation and we're not going to talk anymore." You're just asking a judge to order you back and make you explain yourself. So I agree with you, Dan. At best, not encouraging. At worst, maybe things didn't go well at all. When you hear that kind of language.
All right, case closed on that one.
That's unfortunate, again, because Jokic, I don't think he's going to get it, even though he's having a phenomenal year. I think the national media is just too biased against him, but he could be back-to-back MVP on the NBA side. The Avs are blowing away the competition. Again, they have to get it done in the playoffs, but the Avs could absolutely be the Stanley Cup champions this year, and we don't get to see it. The majority of the market gets to see none of it unless they happen to be on a national broadcast.
Yep. Which is so fascinating, because Dan and I last week talked about Stan Kroenke being hailed around LA as the guy who brought the Super Bowl to LA. And, the first thing I thought of, and then, Dan backed it up, is like, wait, this is not the fan experience for every other Kroenke team.
Right. And well, what we talked about on the show was this don't happen in LA either. He just said, all right, you guys do your job. And yeah, he didn't stop them from doing anything, but it wasn't like he, as an owner, in my opinion, did anything, came down from the owner's box and said, guys, I really want you to get a championship, so I'm doing this. No, it's the NFL. It's a salary cap sport. He didn't stop them from spending their salary cap money. But so what? I mean, yeah, like it wasn't like it's a luxury tax and he went over the luxury tax. Yes, he allowed them. He hired the people and let them go out and do it. But no, I mean, so what? And yes, he built a nice complex. That's fine. And what I was thinking about though, Steve, on the trip today, you're talking about him being a good business person. I think his net worth evaluations now are way below, because they always say he's worth about $4 billion. Forbes says that can't be anywhere close to true anymore. The Rams alone, with that complex and everything, have got to be knocking on the door of $10 billion. He owns the Avs and Nuggets. Those properties themselves have got to be, and maybe they're saying, maybe they're not giving him credit for that because now, technically he's put that in some sort of blind trust, or maybe technically his mom or his wife and son maybe own that, which I don't even think that's really the case, but whatever. But he also owns the Arsenal. So the dude now is probably worth closer to 10 or 15 billion dollars when you start out with nothing and just married a Walton heir. So yeah, I mean, he's savvy, and he's up to probably 10 or 15 billion dollars. Now here's the funny thing though, and here's what we always tried to talk, we've talked about a lot, particularly on my show. What's this guy's motivation? Because he'll tell you, I buy, I don't sell. So what does it matter? Like, he doesn't ever sell anything. Who cares?
That's awesome. All hail Stan Kroenke, hero to LA. So great. All right, sticking in the sports world. So the women's soccer team got a $22 million settlement here over the equal pay fight. So what brought this to a close, and is that number good? It sounds crazy. I don't know. Is that a good number?
I think that number is fantastic. It's 24 million, 22 to the players and 2 in donations. But I think the biggest part about it was that the agreement moving forward, that they're going to be paid under the same compensation system as the men. I mean, from my perspective, even without the 24 million, with just that agreement moving forward, I think it was a home run of a lawsuit. I saw one of the headlines, U.S. women's national team falls short of 67 million ask in their lawsuit. And it's like, if you want to give me 1/3 of every amount I ask for in a lawsuit, I'm going to do just fine. That I think they knocked it out of the park. I mean, Dan, you see it any other way? I think that's the best you could ask for.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Well, there you go, Steve.
What was the crux of the suit? Remind us what the fight was over.
Well, I mean, it was a sexual discrimination case that basically said the United States government, through its teams, is treating women differently than they're treating men, and that it's not a necessity of work. So there can be discrimination of men and women if it's a requirement of the work. So, for instance, the one that's always used is like a firefighter. Like, if a woman can't physically do the job, then it's okay to discriminate. But here they said, under any metric, the women have far exceeded what the men have delivered. They've won more tournaments. They have signed more endorsements. They have brought in more revenue, and yet they are still paid a fraction of what the men were paid. Now, what the national team said is, whoa, you agreed on that structure. You agreed on a different structure than what the men had. The men had lower guarantees with higher rewards, and you guys wanted higher guarantees with lower bonus structure, and that's what you got. That was the crux of the dispute. And what came out of it is they got the exact same deal. They will now be paid exactly the same as the men get paid, which is a significant increase. I think the order of difference is like 3 to 4 times more. So, well, endorsements isn't part of the deal, right? So this has to do with what their pay and their compensation structure is. Endorsements, the if it's a national team endorsement, then that would maybe be part of the calculus. I didn't look into that level of details, Kirk, but I'll have to take a look at that. But obviously, individual endorsements aren't a part of it. But if there's a national team endorsement, like obviously, I think their uniforms are Nike. I'll have to take a look at that and see if that includes that. I would imagine the answer is yes. Otherwise, they probably would not have agreed.
All right, next up, Deshaun Watson. We hit this a little bit on Cofield and Company today, but Watson can be deposed in 9 of the suits against him. So what's the deal here?
Well, it'd be interesting to hear from Dan on this one. So, what's going to happen is, at least on the 9 suits where the women have already been deposed and they did not file criminal complaints, the judge is going to allow the deposition of Watson to go through. Rusty Hardin, his attorney, has already indicated it would be malpractice if I allowed him to answer any questions while there's a pending criminal investigation, which is why I moved to continue it until after April 1st, because we have all indication that the DA will make a decision on criminal prosecution on April 1st. Um, you know, obviously, I agree that it would be malpractice if he did not advise Deshaun Watson of what his Fifth Amendment rights are, and to ensure that his first and foremost that he's protected from going to jail. Um, Now, I don't know the story or what he would say is his story, so I can't say it's malpractice to allow him to testify or not. That depends on what the testimony would be. Um, but clearly, from my perspective on the civil side, Busby's intentionally trying to do this because he wants Watson to take the fifth so that he can comment on it in a civil case, which you can. You can't in a criminal case, but in a civil case, I could say, I asked you that question and you took the fifth, and turn to the jury and say, and why would he do that? I'm allowed to do that. So that's what I think Busby's trying to do. And the short version of it is I don't know that that will stick. If by April 1st there are no charges filed and Deshaun Watson can speak freely, there's going to be written discovery he can amend, unless they get a court order. And I think Harden will go to the court and say, "Hey, we want the opportunity to answer these questions now." And I think 45 days removed, the court might say, "Yeah, all right, go for it." It's best that the jury hear all the facts. But Dan, I'm looking at it from the civil side, and I like to get witnesses to take the fifth. I think it's helpful to my case, even though I'm getting no information because I can comment on it. But maybe you have a different perspective.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with Harden, right? You're not going to be able to answer. I, I think it's difficult when you say what the judge said here was, well, they've given their depositions and they're saying they're not going to file criminal complaints. Well, that's short-sighted, right? Because there's all these other cases that are out there that possibly could have criminal implications. So to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So why would you not just wait until April 1st? This thing's been hanging out there, and just get them all done at the same time and go with it. Yeah, not a big fan of that. Yes, you can make an inference, a negative inference, um, at yes, at a civil trial for taking the fifth. But there's a ways around that too. You can still defend that if you're savvy enough, an attorney. And yes, I would say yes. Uh, if there are no criminal, um, you know, charges coming, there's no indictments coming, any of that by April 1st. Which is nice. Hey, nice criminal prosecutors to say that. They don't have to do that. They could let it hang out there forever, I guess. As long as there's no statute of limitation issues, I guess, which I haven't even looked at. I guess I would think that they wouldn't be this soon. Typically, I guess they could be, but typically for sex assault charges, most jurisdictions have gone longer. The trend has been to go way longer for those type of allegations. But they're in this case they're saying, we're going to go ahead and deliver a verdict, so to speak, give our opinion and hopefully stick by that. I guess Watson's team will have to make a calculation as to whether I don't know if it'll be in writing or whatever, but give some sort of assurance. The prosecutors will give some sort of assurance to their team that this will be our position moving forward. Now, I think we've talked about this. Bill Cosby, for example, got a non-prosecution agreement that was he ended up going to jail for many, many years later. So I'm not sure how comfortable Mr. Watson will be with whatever assurances he gets from prosecutors about if they ultimately decide they're not going to move forward with a criminal prosecution on this one. But yeah, ultimately, yes, I think a court would allow him to amend his answers later, I would think, to get all the answers in. If the completeness of the proceedings are of importance to the judge, yes, he would allow those in. But certainly at trial, he would allow it as well.
Yeah, I'll just say too, I think on Cosby, there was actually not a non-prosecution agreement. There was just a public statement and a letter. So they didn't actually have a signed agreement, and that was sort of what turned that case. But the Supreme Court, I think, did the right thing and said, hey, if you make representations to these people, and then they go and Cosby's the perfect case to talk about because then he had to go testify in deposition in a civil action and could not take the fifth. That was sort of the understanding of all the parties. He gave his testimony, and then they used that testimony against him in a criminal action, 8 years later. And the Supreme Court said, like, no, you can't do
well,
that.
Right, but the prosecutor who gave the letter also said at that criminal trial, yes, my understanding is, because it was a different prosecutor, said, yes, my understanding is he can't be prosecuted for this. And
I agree, yeah.
A judge said, nah, no big deal.
Yeah, we'll throw him in jail and figure it out later.
Yeah.
That's what happened in that case. So yeah, I think to your point, like even if they do give that sort of agreement or indication that they're not going to prosecute, you got to be somewhat wary of that until you got a sort of a signed non-prosecution agreement. But I also think that because the DA doesn't have to do that, because this can sort of just hang out there as the judge in the civil case, you got to say, I mean, what assurances do we have that April 1st is actually going to happen? And I'm sure Rusty Hardin can't say, I know for a fact that they're going to let us know by April 1st. He's like, that's what I'm being told. And they're like, well, we're moving forward then. We can't wait on a criminal case to dictate the pace of this case. You're going to move forward with depositions. And you know what? If we find out then we'll address it at that time. We obviously want the jury to hear all the facts. That's the utmost public policy, is to ensure that there's a fair trial in which all admissible facts are heard. And so I think this is sort of the civil court just not allowing their timelines to be dictated by a criminal court and try to move the case along as best they can. And we'll see what happens. Kind of clearly he's going to take the fifth. That's going to happen. And then we'll see what happens in April.
So does it come back by August in the cards or not for Watson?
I mean, yeah. If he gets a non-prosecution, and then he can settle his cases. I mean, at any time, if he can settle these cases, I think he's kind of there. I just wonder what Busby's asking for this to kind of have gone on this long. Obviously, if I'm Busby, I think this is my best window of opportunity to settle this case. I'm going to try to embarrass Watson with the questions that he takes the Fifth Amendment on, because what ends up happening is it becomes very difficult to train these witnesses on exactly how to take the Fifth. And what they end up doing is taking the Fifth on every question, which is not proper. Only if the answer could potentially incriminate you are you to take the Fifth. So then a lot of attorneys like to ask a lot of questions that have nothing to do with any criminal proceedings, make the person take the Fifth. It makes them look silly. It makes them look like they're trying to hide stuff. It makes them look dumb. And they use that testimony to be like, this is what we get to present to the jury. Even if you get to amend your answers later, I get to show how you participated in this. What a joke you thought this proceeding was. And so if I'm Busby, and I'm not, because he hasn't handled this case in any way that I would normally handle. So you know what? I'm not a good indicator. But if I was, and I was trying to get a settlement, now would be the best time. Right now, when I know I've got his client has to go to deposition and has to get trained up and is probably scared to do it, even though all he's going to do is take the Fifth, before the criminal prosecution either happens or doesn't. Because if If the DA comes in and says, nah, no prosecution, I mean, he's mostly not scared anymore, right? He's not going to jail. It's about money. He's got plenty of it. And none of my claims are worth so much dang money that it's going to take a significant amount of his net worth. These claims are just not those claims.
All good, Dan?
Yeah, well, it sounded like they had most of these claims. If we're to believe what was in the media reports, they almost had these all wrapped up, except for what, a handful or less than a handful before. So yeah, I think they will get these things done before August. I mean, I can't be certain, but for all this posturing by both sides, we won't settle, blah blah. But yeah, I think they will.
Well, here's a great example, Brady. If they were to ask him, hey, have you ever hired a masseuse outside of the Houston Texans organization? I take the fifth. Well, that's not, he will. He'll say, I take the fifth. And that's not an appropriate question to take the fifth on, right? The answer, yes or no, is not incriminating. It is not illegal to hire a masseuse outside of, a professional sports team. But I'm telling you, it's very difficult to teach a witness and train a witness where it's appropriate to take the fifth and where it's not. And so they end up taking the fifth on every question. And then they look like idiots. And you can make them look like idiots. And then you call in the judge for every question and say, here's the question I asked, and they took the fifth. The judge says, yeah, that's inappropriate. Answer the question. Right. Then you go back on, and all this is on tape, and you got the judge telling them, no, answer the question. And it's excruciating to watch, but it's from a plaintiff's perspective. If a defendant is the one doing that, at the end of the day, it's worth it. If I'm going to present, if this thing's, you have to act as if it's going to trial, and if it's going to trial, and I got video of him doing this kinds of things, I think it's helpful to my case.
All right. One last story, and that's actually more of a rights-based question that I have for you. State and local governments did a lot to protect renters during the pandemic, right? So a lot of protection. It seems like landlords and especially apartment complexes have come out of this, and they're like, we are getting our money back, and the rules are being rewritten. So a story that was on one of the local TV stations today was talking about how fees, application fees and other fees are just through the roof now at apartment complexes. One woman said she got approved. Let's see, there was a $250 admin fee, a one-time deposit of $1,600, a $500 pet deposit, $175 on another admin fee. On top of the rent, there were recurring fees monthly, $74 in pet rent, and $75 a month to use the refrigerator, washer, and dryer. What? So now that we're kind of getting back to more normal times, is there like a fair housing? Like
Sure, there's fair housing statutes, and there's limitations on what they can charge.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Right, what they can charge for, but here's the thing, man. To how you let into it is right, man. These guys got burned the worst. When lockdown happened, everybody was to be taken care of except landlords. They were like, they'll figure it out. And for some people, that's their livelihood. It's not like they do something else for their living and they have this on the side. For some people, this is their living, and there was like no protections there for landlords. And so in the story, I thought, and it was Channel 13, I believe, that did this story. I thought they did a great job of like hearing both sides of it. And the landlords are like, listen, man, fraud is through the roof. Squatting is through the roof. And we have to do so many checks now to get any indication if whether this person is really the person who's renting it, is going to become a squatter, has done this before, has been evicted. So it is expensive for us to have to check this stuff. And frankly, we have to check it because people lie to us. And so we think it's fair to pass that through on the application fee. To all the other fees that this lady's talking about in the story, it's like, hey, they had all these fees after I got approved. I guarantee you that those fees were all disclosed as part of what the contract would be before she made the application. So if it wasn't, then they have a claim. But if I'm assuming, here's what the rental terms are. Would you like to apply? Yes, I'd like to apply. Okay, and then they apply. So now that being said, I am almost never pro landlord. I'm almost always pro tenant. And here's what I suspect is probably happening that's totally nefarious. And that is, in the story, they will report that sometimes these people, these landlords are getting hundreds of applications for one spot because the rental market is so unbelievably out of control here. And I'm sure what they're doing is, some of them is, cool, let's keep that open until the applications keep coming in. Let's keep collecting those checks. And we'll start at the top of the list. Oh, number one's no good. Number two is good. All right, place is rented out. Thanks, everybody. And they never return any application fees. They don't spend any money on the background checks, and they use it as an income stream. That's fraud. That is a claim that you can be brought based on the laws that currently exist. You can't charge like that for a fee for a check that you're not doing. And so
do you have a right? Do you have a right as an applicant? Hey, I want to see the results of your background check. I want a copy of that.
You have a right, if they check your credit anytime, to receive a copy of the credit when they do that. That's a federal statute. But if they do an FBI background check, there's a lot of different agencies that you can sign on to that'll do a couple different checks across the board. There's nothing in state statute that says you have a right to receive what they received. But I think you have a right to say, did you check my credit, and did my application make it through the screening process? And if they say no, you know, number 2 or number 5 or whatever before you ended up getting the apartment, then I think you have the right to say, well, give me the refund. And they did say in that story that some of the people were talking about, yeah, I got refunds on some of them, and some of them I didn't. So some of these landlords are doing it exactly the right way. You know,
Right.
if I had to be in the landlord business right now, man, with we got years of people getting used to not paying rent. Like, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to do every check I possibly can to figure out if this person's a deadbeat or not. So I don't fault them there. But I also know that what landlords do, and when I was a small claims judge here locally before I got into the legislative branch, before I had to resign, what I would often see is, charge for this carpet cleaning fee, or to replace the carpets, or painting fee. And then the pictures of the next person looked identical to the pictures of the person they'd already charged. They charged these people 7 different times for the same replacement of the carpet that they never replaced. You can't do that. That's fraud. And so I suspect there's quite a bit of that going on. And if it was an area of law I practice in, I think there's a pretty good opportunity for a couple of real smart lawyers to get involved in this, and not only help out the community by putting a stop to this kind of action, but make a pretty good dollar too. You tack on all these fees for all these applicants across all these different apartments. It's a big number.
All right. Well, there you go, Dan. You got another revenue stream coming up. Would you move 3 hours from Denver? You're in the middle of nowhere.
We like Steamboat. We've always loved it.
I know. I figured
this is it, though. This is your permanent house now?
We like Steamboat.
Okay. I don't know if he's kidding with us. I liked your other kitchen. What do you mean? What's going on here? Is this kitchen big enough? How are you going to cook for all these charities? You buy a truck to deliver all the food back to Denver?
We'll make it work.
He's being very secretive. There's something. I mean, I don't think he's hiding out because he wouldn't do the podcast. I mean, he clearly changed his name to throw people off. Who knows?
I'm in Steamboat. What are you talking about? I'm in Steamboat right now.
Steamboat is beautiful. I am a big fan of Steamboat. I will say that.
All right. Well, good job tonight. Glad you guys were back.
Yeah,
and I'm glad
to see Jan.
You laid down the audio I needed tomorrow to make sure that Adam Candy pays me. So, I mean, it's pretty.
That's absurd. It's absurd. I mean, these guys that do this, they make these bets, and they're like, yeah, but just stop. There's none of it. The guys are like that all the time. Well, yeah, but no. I mean, is there anything worse than that guy? I mean, we all know that guy. To be honest, we all know like 8 of those guys. That guy, right?
I worked in radio for like 18 years with that guy.
Yeah,
every damn day.
I shouldn't have to because seriously, like, we actually like on my show, the drive is called our afternoon drive. They actually had to have like a constitution of like what constituted a legal wager on their damn show because they're both of them. Neither one of them you can trust, farther than you can throw them, and they have like their producer has to like write down each bet because neither one of them you could trust or whatever. And here's the worst thing, because I make fun of them for it because they're both, one of them's a former athlete and the other one, has been doing it forever. And so he makes a bunch of money. They don't even pay off their own bets. They have like servants, if it's a coffee bet or a lunch bet or something, like somebody delivers it and then they send a producer to go get it from the elevator, like this or that or the other. Like, what do you, come on. It's like total, it's not even worth it anymore. They don't even keep track. They're trying to weasel their way out of every bet. And the odd event that they even pay off the bet that they don't worm their way out of, then they just, order somebody, some servant around or their producer or something. And, it's not even worth it anymore.
Terrible people. Not in Las Vegas. We have the cream of the crop when it comes to radio hosts. Very honorable.
Yeah, you guys just weasel out straight up. You're every little edge to not pay off.
It's the Adams. The Adams. They're always trying to pull this bull crap. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to pay Dan. You owe him a
barbecue
sandwich.
All right. I mean, it really is no excuse anymore because I could probably, from state to state, I could probably just have someone deliver you some food. Except apparently this is now some secret location. I don't know if that you're actually indicate where you are. You're saying you're there, but
I'm in Steamboat, Colorado. There's a gondola here, less than 100 yards from my front door right now.
All right, whatever the restaurant is closest to the gondola, that's where you're getting your barbecue sandwich from. That's my landmark. What are you gonna do? All right, everybody.